Hello everyone and welcome back to another book review in my car. It is the quiet place to film today, so this is where I am at. Today I am going to be reviewing another entry in the challenge that I've set to myself to read every Hugo award for Best Novel and Best Novella, as well as the shortlisted finalists in those two categories. I'm using the list that's on the two Wikipedia pages for this, so that's how I'm determining what I'm going to read, and I'm starting with the oldest books and moving to the newest. So I had another entry to read, and let's talk about it. So the entry that I read was by Samuel Delaney, and it was a shortlisted finalist for the 1969 Best Novella. So according to the Wikipedia page, it was called Lines of Power, but I believe it was published under a different name initially, so I hope I'm reading the right novella. I found it in the book, or the collection by Samuel Delaney, Driftglass. And if I can find the table of contents, the one that I am reading is "We, in some strange powers employ, move on a rigorous line." So I had to order this book from a different library, and when I do that, they put a sticker with all my personal information on the front of the book. So I'm not going to hold up the cover for you to see. Maybe I'll hold up the spine. This is what the spine says. Driftglass by Samuel Delaney. And yeah, this is kind of what the cover looks like as well. I have read something by Samuel Delaney before. He was also a shortlisted finalist in 1968 for his novella, The Star Pit. So I am familiar with his works, and I have, or at least one other of his works, and I have read him before. The premise of "We, in some strange powers employ, move on a rigorous line," again, I hope I've said that correctly, is that there is in the future these big lines that run underneath the earth that have a great amount of power. And we're following some characters who are kind of like the futuristic equivalent of linemen, at least that's how I viewed them. So linemen, the people who go and fix the power lines when there's a power outage or do maintenance on those power lines, are working with high voltage and a lot of electricity. Samuel Delaney kind of takes that idea to a whole new level where they are working with so much electricity on these massive underground wires which run power, and also, it was seemingly implied, help connect the world to the world computer, which I didn't know if Samuel Delaney was predicting anything, but it feels like the internet. It's these massive pieces of critical infrastructure that can be very dangerous to work with. One of the characters, the narrator who's telling this, actually watched his wife be killed by one of these powers when powerful lines when she, I guess, touched it when it was on. So very powerful, very dangerous. The premise of this novella is that this group has to go into this area near the Canada-US border and put a new line in. So they've discovered there's some people living up in a mountain who don't have access to power, and they need to run a new line in order to give these people power, or they need to make sure these people have access to power. When they get there and start interacting with this group that's living up in the mountain, which is kind of like this group of bikers, sort of, they find out that these are just people clinging to an old way of life who have no desire to have power, despite the law saying that they need to have power. They don't want it, and they're just trying to live their life in peace. So it's kind of this clash of two different ideas. You have the one group that legally is required to provide power, and another group that's saying, but we don't want it, so why are we being required to get it? And it's kind of those two ideas coming together. Because this book is a novella, I don't want to get too far into the details of the plot because it's very short, so you can read it in like one or two sittings. I feel like the more I talk about the plot, the more I give away. So that's the premise of the plot, but I did want to talk a little bit about my thoughts and feelings about it. The first thing that I notice when reading these books from like the 1960s is they sometimes do feel a little bit dated with regard to like the language they use, but also that the way they talk about different characters. So I do think that a modern reader would find this a little dated. Also, something that I've noticed with Samuel Delaney is I do sometimes have trouble connecting with some of the characters that he creates. His characters are just a little bit less memorable than other characters. For example, in his other book that I read, The Star Pit, the characters are a little less memorable than other characters from other Hugo Award finalists and winners. So I do find that I don't really connect with his characters, but that could just be a me thing. For whatever reason, his characters might not be doing it for me. Well, this was an interesting book to read just because of the premise was sort of interesting. It was interesting to see these two groups talk to one another. Overall, the book didn't connect with me. There was never like this hook that got me drawn into the premise. And for that reason, I just feel like I didn't connect with it. And I found that I never really connected with one of the characters in this book. There was never one character that I felt like I was really strongly cheering for. And that kind of affected my opinion of this book. However, I'm sure there's other people who would like it. And if you're the kind of person, or if you are someone who has read this book or this novella and did like it, I would like to know what you thought about it. I also would like to know what pieces of work by Samuel Delaney other people recommend. Maybe the ones that were shortlisted, or I don't know if he won a Hugo, but the ones that his novellas that are being shortlisted weren't maybe considered his best works. So who knows? I would love to know what other people think about him. For whatever reason, this is the second novella that I've read by him that just is so-so, ho-hum, but I'd love to read something that I maybe connect with more. That was my opinion on We and Some Strange Powers Employ Move on a Rigorous Line, though. I will say I really do like the name. The title of the novella was super cool, so I'm going to give it a bonus point for that. I do like the name, and I think it just kind of flows really interesting. That does pique your interest. So the title was very well done. The story I just didn't connect with very well, didn't connect with the characters, and didn't really connect with the plot, at least not to the level that I was hoping to or that I wanted to. Love to hear your thoughts and opinions on it. Please let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.